Good evening, everyone. I ask that you would all please rise for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. God of all life, you call us to live in community and teach us to care for one another. We pray for those whose position and authority affect the lives of others. Please inspire them with a vision of community as it might be. The love of neighbor and concern for one another drive out discontent, strife, anxiety, and fear. Help us to work together with one heart and will, with sympathy and understanding, to serve the common good and to minister to people in trouble and despair and multiply true happiness among us. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30, Monday, July 6, 2020. I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Ferguson.
Here.
Gustafson.
Here.
Hicks.
Here.
Quorum. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I will call on our city administrator, Andrew Brumseth. Good evening, Andrew.
Yeah, good evening, Your Honor, members. I hope you're all doing well. We don't have any additions to the agenda this evening, so as presented.
Thank you. For that, we would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Justin. Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That motion is approved. Under public hearings tonight, we have a public hearing for City Project 5956, which is the 2020 Burlington Avenue Street Improvement Project. And we'll call on our city engineer, Brian Navarro. Good evening, Brian.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Honor, and members of the council. Yes, tonight is a final cost hearing for Public Improvement 5271, also referred to as Combined Project 5956. This is individual assessment notices have been sent to the benefiting properties, and they're included in your packet for those receiving the special benefit from this improvement project. Other than general inquiries, I have not received any objections to this project. So just to give a recap background, this is a final cost hearing. This is reconstruction projects of the sanitary sewer, water main, storm sewer, and services, both sanitary and water, and bituminous street sections. The location is Burlington Avenue. Here's a refer to the title sheet on the projector here. Burlington Avenue, extending from Mount Faith to Randolph Avenue, and the alley of Glenway from Burlington Avenue to the east terminus. As noted, today is a hearing date. We're proposing an interest rate of 4%, assessment of 15 years. The estimated special assessment rates for a bituminous street with curb and gutter, only 5-ton design, is based on construction prices recently received. It is at $70.63 per lineal foot. I want to just note that the preliminary hearing, the proposed at that time was $91.28, so quite a good savings. Next page in your pack is a budgetary breakdown with the special assessed bituminous street ton, 5-ton design. We're estimating a total project cost, include engineering, $56,617.34. The city share bituminous street at 5-ton is $52,968.85. The city share for bituminous 9-ton street design plus the extra width, $289,146.14. City share for sanitary services, $108,187.75. City share for water main and services is $107,626.75. City share for storm sewer, $44,068.75, for a total combined project cost of $658,615.58. We're proposing funding this through a combination. Mentioned the PRR bond special assessments for residents, MSA street construction funds, sanitary sewer, water fund, and stormwater enterprise funds. So at this time, Your Honor, I'm requesting you open up the hearing for this improvement project.
Thank you, Brian, and we will do that now. We'll open the public hearing. for the Burlington Avenue Street Improvement Project, City Project 5956. Anyone wishing to speak to that, please step to the lectern. See no one. We will close the public hearing, and it's back to the council. We will need a resolution adopting the final cost assessment for this project.
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Scott. Second, any?
I'll second it. Oh.
Yeah, we got a resolution in a second. Any questions for Brian?
I just got an ancillary kind of question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Timing of the project with school, will completion of the project happen before fall, or what's the schedule on?
Yes, a very good answer. We're proposing substantial completion this fall. However, if we want to go back and discuss how we're holding this final cost hearing as we are right now prior to the awarding, mention the resolution is adopting the final assessment rules contingent on awarding the next item, which is the construction project. Based on the objections, which we're receiving none, that'd be my recommendation award, which will fast track the schedule. If council did want it to delay based on any objections, there's generally 30-day appeal period plus a 10-day notice to district court. So that's all based on feedback that we're getting right now from having this hearing right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Scott?
A simple question. What does MSAS stand for?
Municipal state aid, it's construction. That's a municipal state aid route designated within the city limits.
So municipal state aid S. What's the S at the end?
What? Street system.
Streets. Okay. Thanks.
That's right.
Any other questions before we call for the vote? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Farming.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Josephson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. We can award that bid this evening as well. So we would have a resolution to award that bid for project 5956 to R.L. Larson Excavating in the amount of $470,993.15. Brian, do you have anything to add on that?
No, Your Honor, other than we've received 9 electronic bids on the bid opening, which is June 18th. The parent low was R.L. Larson. Submitted lowest bid amount $478,993.15. The tabulation of bids is included in your packet. The engineer's estimate was $680,000. We've reviewed and we recommend that this be awarded, especially given the assessment rules were just adopted for this project.
Sure, certainly.
I'll offer, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim. Any further questions? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Farming.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Josephson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 2 is a resolution awarding the construction services contract for Public Improvement 5331, which is the 2020 mill and overlay project of the County Highway Trail. And I'll call on Brian again.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. On Thursday, June 25th, sealed bids were open for this project. I have a location map up on the projector right now. This includes portions to receive the mill and overlay of Alcott, the west side of Lake Alice, and the Cassaw One Trail adjacent, basically from the bridge to where it meets Otter Tail County's jurisdiction. These were all included, but however, we did bid it with a base bid and alternates. Mark Lee Asphalt Paving was the apparent low. That submitted a total base bid plus alternate bid of $220,721. Our estimate at the time of construction was $279,300. Tabulation once again is included for further review. We've reviewed the bid results and conducted a post-bid interview with Mark Lee. Everything seems to be in good order. So with the construction base contract, if awarded with Mark Lee, construction contract increase of 25%, which I'm also included in a second item, to look to expand other additional streets based on the good favorable bids. With the construction contingency, engineering design, and some soft costs, I'm estimating a total project cost of about $326,873.25. Second sheet for funding, I'm showing the budgeted mill and overlay, the annual seal coat amount that we're trying to carry over, Park Department capital outlay funds, and supplementing a little bit with MSA maintenance fund. As you can see, sufficient funds are available to proceed with this project. So at this time, I'm requesting awarding the construction services contract to Mark Lee Asphalt and Paving in an amount of $221,721. And then also authorization as well to add to the base contract up to 25% per statute.
Thank you, Brian. Someone like to offer that?
I'll second it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Anthony. I have a question, Brian. So on the trail, you said from the bridge, is that, you talking about the bridge between Wright and Hoot Lake?
Yes, correct.
And then that goes out on County Road 1 to where
Farther east, northeast, yes.
And how about this side of the bridge? I mean, do we have any plans for that? That's in pretty rough shape as well.
We do
correct?
have some plans. We've removed and replaced, I believe, quite a few hundred feet a year prior to.
Sure.
And we're going to continue looking in the area, but just based with funds, this is what we could fit into our schedule. We
Yep.
might look at that based on these prices too. That might be part of that 25% increase I'm looking
that's what I was
upon
gonna-
further review.
Question, yeah. Okay, thank you, Brian. Any other questions for Scott?
I think that we'll hear a lot of positive comments about including the west side of Lake Alice. So for the sake of announcement, I guess I just wanted to point out that that was included.
Well, thank you. And I just want to note too, on Lake Alice, this was done, the same strategy was done as we did on the east side, I think back in 2016. We're not proposing to save on costs, mill anything. We're just proposing to do minimal standards, overlay, and a little bit of patchwork. That's not quite traditional with our other mill and overlay streets where we mill the entire surface. So that's how we did the east side, so that's how we're proposing. That's included in these bid prices right now.
Thank you, Brian. Other questions? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Conley.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Brian. There are no petitions or communications. Under the consent agenda, there's 4 items. I know Anthony has asked for items 3 and 4 to be removed. Anything else removed? If not, I would entertain a resolution to approve items 1 and 2.
So moved.
Thanks, Jim.
I'll second it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Conley.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 3 is a resolution approving election judges for August 11th, 2020 primary election. I believe there's someone's name was mentioned twice. Is that?
Yeah, I just, under first ward, first and second precinct, Sandy Roofer's name had been duplicated, and I know the roofers are everywhere, but I'm not sure that they could be in 2 places at one time. So I just wanted to point that out. Outside of that, I have no issues and would make a resolution if it's corrected.
Sure.
Yeah, it's simply a typo, but I will put a plug in because Sandy Roofer did volunteer for a double shift, so that's why the name got under. There's a typo for her to do that.
All right, thanks, Anthony. That was a resolution. Just second.
Another question on, yeah, I'll second it.
Second. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
The last line under the listing of the various names lists the alternates, and there are 4 or 5 names of alternates, and the end of the sentence reads, "and others as needed." And how are those others determined should that need arise?
Trying to plan for staffing an election during COVID has been very interesting because not everybody's comfortable being in that position. As long as they have the correct training, and we're doing an online training system this year, which we're going to put out to all judges. So some people just said unless the situation with their health situation improves, they wouldn't be willing to do it, but they might be able to later. So we always give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room, but they are certified trained election judges that we pull from.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Lynn. Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Conley.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 4 is a resolution approving the final replat of Aspen for Sundance as requested by Frontier Ventures LLC. And I believe, Anthony, you just wanted to have a look at the.
Yeah, my biggest thing on that was that I know there's a legal description, but it's very hard to visualize the legal description, and I would like to see the actual physical plat as to how it's intended to be laid out. And I think
Brian's
Brian was going to have that for us.
Could do 1 negative 90 degree. What? There we go.
Right.
Western Avenue to the north, Undertale Drive bounded on the south, north being up on the projector.
Yep. So the one road will go all the way through, and the other one's going to be a cul-de-sac.
Correct.
Right. That's 27 lots, is that? My eyesight's,
19.
The original plat was 27.
the original was 27. right?
Yes, the original one that was vacated, Aspen, was about, 27.
Right.
There's also a preliminary utility laid out too, that's also in the packet as well.
And then the lighter diagonal lines, those are the old lines, and then the more bolder east-west, north-south type lines, those were the revised or the newer version, correct?
Yes, essentially, those are reflective of the old plat that were vacated, resolved. The new bowler lines, yes, are of that. So essentially,
Okay.
yes, you go from, I'd say, a 27 to what you see before you right now.
And then that link that goes from the bottom of the cul-de-sac to the west and south, that doesn't actually, that's not going to be a street, that'll be a lot, right?
No, that's correct, that's vacated.
Thanks.
Because I think that bottom sort of like southeast corner is probably unbuildable anyway. Because it's kind of like a.
It's based on topography, yes. Coming through from the cul-de-sac, going to as once was dedicated at the time, that's extremely steep slopes and everything. So
Is that why it's a cul-de-sac and not a through then too?
part of the reason, yeah. And then for geometrics for street cars and everything, it was just never served from what the developer's intent wanted to be at this time.
Thank you.
You,
I think he's got one more picture he was going to show us.
oh, no, I don't, you got another picture there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we may have to zoom out on this one. This was just a conceptual site layout, meeting with the engineers and the developers. We've met on site to review some of the concerns, primarily stormwater and utility layout as well. So key features, the blue indications of proposed water main adjacent to sanitary sewer, 8-inch sewer mains, and some of the storm sewer. I want to point out Lot B for permanent stormwater management has been reserved. We're looking to enhance that stormwater pond to meet the requirements, and using a series of storm sewer piping to convey all the water to that, along with curb and gutter as well.
Right. Yeah, 'cause I mean, that was a concern of obviously the residents in the kind of the upper north kind of west corner was that slope on the west side that runs
Correct.
into their backyards.
Correct. And we'll be collecting a lot of that runoff that is being conveyed to that area
Yeah,
through
so it's going to come into the street.
into the street, curb and gutter, catch basins, to the pond. That's the
Right.
intent.
What does the pond drain to then?
Beneath Otter Tail Drive, south, I can't remember precisely where that goes, just north of the
Right.
wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Would you like to offer that resolution?
I'll offer that resolution.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Justin. Any further questions? Scott?
Just a quick question for Brian. That outlot enhancement, when that's all done, is that going to be fenced in like the one up at the corner of Broadway and Fur on the north end of town, or will it just be open? Maybe you haven't decided yet, but.
Well, we haven't generally decided. We follow NERC guidelines, which refer to standards for pond design, which includes not only the sizing, sediment removal of ponds, but also natural vegetation for cooling the water. So effectively, by the time it does reach that outlets and everything, it is treated in many forms. So there's guidelines that we have to follow. So yes, we're still working on that, what the treatments are going to be.
Maybe or maybe not a fence.
Pardon?
A fence, maybe or maybe not a fence around it?
To the best of my, we haven't quite got that far. No, perhaps not on that, but we can definitely take a look at it. If we think the slope designs and everything, it warrants that, we will look at that.
For what it's worth, I like them better without a fence, but I suppose for safety reasons, if they're deep enough, you probably have to do that.
Well, and that's a very good question too, because a lot of the newer designs does take into account for kids around these ponds, because they are all over everywhere you go, anywhere. And yes, there's benching, things like that, like I mentioned, contoured especially to help if there is a bystander that does go down the pond to maintain access, getting out, recovering, getting them out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a resolution and a second. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Twain.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, tonight we have the second reading of ordinance 4/8 series, which is the rezoning of G&S Holdings LLC Vaughn Properties from B2 to I2. That's been before us. It's been introduced. If there's any questions, we'll direct them to our city attorney. If not, we'll roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Twain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That ordinance is approved. Under item number 2 is a discussion on a potential resolution rescinding the local COVID-19 emergency declaration. I'll call on Andrew Bremser.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor, members. This is on the agenda this evening because I had a few council members reach out and ask me to include this this evening for consideration by the city council. It's certainly up to the city council to decide when the appropriate time is to end the local designated emergency as it relates to the pandemic. As I stand before you today, if I were to make a case as to why it should continue on, I would say a few different things. I talked to Chief Bergen just before the meeting, and he may have something to add at the end here, but some of the funding opportunities that we have, specifically like the FEMA reimbursement funding, are directly tied to these local declaration of emergencies. So to be eligible for some of those funding opportunities, you may have to have this local emergency in place. We have submitted a request to FEMA already, so if there's additional expenses, that would be something to keep in mind to need this designation in place. The other way that this emergency declaration has benefited the community, I would say, is it's given us the flexibility to work with our local businesses as they've had very difficult times, obviously, and much uncertainty with various closures. So, for example, we were able to allow the restaurants downtown to have the sandwich boards out on the sidewalks, designating pickup spots and some of those things as they were forced to be closed, which our general ordinances wouldn't allow us to do. We also were able to allow some businesses that were really struggling to have additional signage opportunities along Union Avenue and places that ordinarily wouldn't have happened. And then probably most recently, we were able to rent out picnic tables to restaurants as they began to open up outdoor seating opportunities, which we were able to do outside of our fee schedule. We did that for $1 to help those businesses out rather than charge what our fees would be. Without this emergency declaration, staff's really back to needing to enforce the ordinances as they're written, including the fee schedule and some of those other things. We don't have that flexibility outside of this local emergency. The other thing I would say is The hospital's still projecting that the peak for our local area is ahead of us. They've said all along it's going to be late summer, and we just haven't been impacted here, which is why it's probably come up to in this local emergency. And I certainly can appreciate and agree with that point of view as well. And then just finally here, the talk over the last week has been related to the potential for additional closures if the cases don't slow down and folks don't begin taking things more seriously. And I would hate to have the state make a decision to that effect and then have the city be in a position where they don't have the ability to respond accordingly to the business needs if there were additional closures forthcoming. In talking with Chief Bergeron before the meeting, he had a really good suggestion. If the council decides to keep this in place, we would be fine with that. If the council decides to terminate this tonight, we're fine with that as well. But perhaps we could state that we're going to keep this in place if that's the direction, in conjunction with the state of Minnesota. So when the state determines that the emergency has ended, the local emergency could end at that time as well. So I thought that was a good suggestion, as clearly there's, reasons that this could continue on at the state level and also the local level for similar reasons related to funding. I don't know if Kyle, if you have anything else you want to add, or?
I would just say that it's so uncertain with the governor's, one person can write an order and the whole state has to follow along, and that order can come out overnight. So for me, that's been the biggest thing during this pandemic. At the beginning, we think it's more of a health emergency and we're planning for that. But as this thing has kind of drug on, this has really become more of an economic emergency. And I just think we're better suited to keep it in place to, as Andrew pointed out, to try to address some of the issues that are impacting our local businesses. And it gives us that flexibility. So as long as the governor has that authority to issue these executive orders, just kind of at a whim, why would we handicap ourselves by not being able to respond, appropriately or adequately to help out local businesses? So I would just kind of echo what Andrew said.
Thanks, Chief.
I just maybe have one comment or question. It sounds like everything you pointed out was an advantage. Is there a disadvantage why we wouldn't keep it in place? It doesn't sound like there is one.
There's really no impact to keep it in place other than, folks in town could argue that it hasn't impacted Fergus Falls from a health emergency standpoint, like Kyle mentioned, as it has other communities who have this ongoing, but there's no implications to keep it going. There's no negative impact.
Sounds good, thank you.
Anthony?
Could you expand a little bit on the FEMA funding opportunity?
Sure.
If there's an advantage to keep it in place to get funding, then I'm all for free money.
No, and that's, if you look back to March when we talked about enacting the order originally, a lot of it was based on getting FEMA funds for the pandemic. And then also, I think maybe the second issue that Rolf talked about a little bit was just how we operate as a government body and not having all to be here during meetings. So the first FEMA grant that was submitted, I think, did require the emergency declaration. And talking with Ryan, I believe that grant was already submitted, and it only went up to, I want to say, roughly around June 1st, end of May, June 1st. So that FEMA window is still open from, that point until who knows how long, so that if we do incur other expenses, for the pandemic, we can reapply for more or additional funding at that time. So again, I don't think it hurts us to leave the order in place. If anything, it just kind of gives us that flexibility. We applied for some other grants. Some required that you had a declaration, others did not. So I just think, for me, the biggest thing is really the governor and his ability or power to issue these executive orders. And as long as those powers are in place at the state level, I just think it would behoove us to have the same flexibility at a local level to kind of respond to whatever might come at us next. So.
Thanks. Any
Other,
I don't know if you want a motion, but I would, if we're to keep it in place, I would make the motion that we mirror the state's emergency, ruling. So if the state terminates, then we terminate.
sure. Yeah, and I think that,
Make a resolution.
I'll make that a resolution.
so there's a
The
resolution to continue as long
city
as
of
the
Fergus
state-
Falls mirror what the state of Minnesota does from an emergency declaration perspective.
Sounds good. Someone like to second that resolution?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brent. Any questions?
I did have one question.
Go ahead,
Since a
Brent.
few councilmen did request, on this, has there been any negative impact with this at all?
You're under Councilmember Thompson, from staff's perspective, no. I haven't gotten any feedback either way. Doesn't look like Kyle has.
No, and I would just say that we as a city haven't abused that power. We, other than helping businesses and apply for grants, as a city entity, we have not taken any actions, passed any emergency resolution. So I don't think there's been an abuse of power on the city standpoint. If anything, it's been a proactive measure to help our own community.
Okay. Yeah, because if there hasn't been anything negative, I wouldn't see a reason why to remove it right now.
I agree. Thank you, Brent. Any other questions, comments? Do we have a resolution? Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
I would suppose that from the public's point of view, since the sense of impact here has been relatively small in Fergus Falls locally, they may think that it might be thought that if we were to drop this emergency declaration, it would essentially send a signal to those beyond here to say, we're done with this, maybe you should be done with it too, that kind of a thing. But to the degree that maintaining this declaration allows us some funding opportunities, I'm perfectly okay with keeping it in place, and I'll vote for the resolution.
Thanks, Scott. Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Justin.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 3 is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to sign and submit the Coronavirus Relief Fund, or the CARES Act certification form. And again, I'll call on Andrew Brumseth.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Members, also related to the COVID-19 crisis, the federal government passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, as you probably all have heard referred to as the CARES Act, which sent money to the state level to then trickle down to local governments. And just recently, on June 25th, Governor Walz announced a plan to distribute $841 million of federal funds to Minnesota cities, counties, and townships. In Fergus Falls, we have been slated under the formula, which is per pupil or per resident, $1,035,000. And so what we need to do is submit a certification form to the state of Minnesota, which then 6 to 8 days following that, they'll release the funds to the local government. We have a tax levy committee meeting scheduled later this week to begin talking about how we're going to recommend the appropriate use of these funds. There are a lot of parameters as it relates to these funds, and really the test for these funds is 3 things. 1, are they necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19? 2, they must not be accounted for in the 2020 city budget. And 3, the expenses must be incurred during the period beginning March 1st, 2020 and ending December 1st, 2020. They cannot be used for revenue replacement, and they can also not be used for things that we've looked at getting other funding or reimbursement mechanisms related to, such as the FEMA funds we just talked about. Any aid of that $1,035,000 that we don't spend by November 15th must be sent to Otter Tail County, and then the county has time to spend those funds. If they don't, they must be returned to the state and then ultimately the federal government. So because we are receiving funds in excess of $750,000, we will be required to have a federal single audit, and I'll let Bill speak more about that in a second here, but it really does add a level of scrutiny to the distribution of these funds and ensures that they're following the guidelines as provided by the federal government when they release these funds. So the action this evening is to give me authorization to sign and submit the Coronavirus Relief Fund certification form. Again, we submit that to the state. The next date that we can do that is on July 20th. And then we can expect about a week after that to see the funds. We will put a process in place for folks to ask for monies. I've already had 7 organizations in town reach out and ask if they can have some of the CARES Act funding. Of course, we need to talk about what that looks like, and that's what the tax levy committee will start to do. Ultimately, bringing recommendations back before the city council as to how those funds should be spent. But we certainly need to take care of our own costs and things like that first prior to going beyond the city. So I don't have anything else unless anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I'll have Bill just quickly talk about the importance of that audit and how we need to ensure that the funds are spent in an appropriate manner.
Thanks, Andrew. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, the city receives federal funds most every year, and the threshold is $750,000 of federal expenditures. So let's say we were to receive, an amount over that, but if we didn't expend those dollars, it's tied to when you expend them. So likely with receiving an allocation over $1 million, we'll have a single audit. We had one last year related to the Lincoln Avenue project. That takes place during the same time we have our regular financial audit. The auditors just have to do additional work and additional testing where they actually look at those major federal programs and make sure we've abided by the laws. And it's guided under what's called uniform guidance. So, all these certain criteria that we would need to follow. The other thing, if we pass these funds on to other organizations, that would be recipient reporting. We'll have to be on top of that and making sure that how they're being used by those other organizations still qualify under this program. So that's kind of the extra requirements with that is that monitoring of where the money goes from here. In other words, we want to make sure those federal funds are used appropriately after they leave us as well. So, and we'll be charged with keeping track of that, and the city will be audited for how they're used elsewhere. So that's what we're going to meet with the tax levy committee and start developing that program.
Just a question on the cost, obviously, for the audit. This will be an additional cost, which it has been in the past. Does that come out of, is it split part between the city and these funds, or does it all just come out of the city's?
No, for instance, last year, it was like an additional $3,000 or $4,000 is what that single audit it's called. And that's the term for a federal audit is a single audit. And we charged that to the program that caused that. That was that Lincoln Avenue program. So we'll look if we could do the same here, but actually we won't, because as I speak, those costs have to be incurred prior to November, do we say 15th?
December
was
1st.
it?
December 1.
December 1.
And then there's a 90-day from there. So we won't get billed for that audit until in 2021. So no, that'll be a city cost.
Okay.
Yep,
Minimal for the impact,
right.
but-
Thank you, Bill.
But it's a
Someone
good
like to offer
question.
that resolution before we have further discussion? Thank you, Caroline. Second, resolution is second.
I just,
Andrew.
Your Honor, members, I just want to reiterate too, I heard some commentary in the last couple of weeks that this is an open checkbook. That is not the case with these funds. The city's not getting $1 million to spend as they please. It's not going to the riverfront project or to an amphitheater like I saw being talked about. These are expenses related to the COVID-19 pandemic that have been incurred by the city of Fergus Falls or other organizations that receive these funds. We do not have great flexibility with these funds. The criteria that I read out come directly out of federal guidance, and to Bill's point, we're going to ensure that these funds are spent appropriately, no matter where they end up or where they are distributed. So not an open checkbook. It's not like we're getting $1 million to do what we want locally. This is strictly related to costs incurred related to COVID-19.
Thanks, Andrew.
And we will be audited on that, so
So that's
obviously,
what's going to happen.
yeah.
Any other questions before we vote? Clarifications? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Clifford,
Asleep.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 4 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of parcel D in the amount of $4,235.26 from Mike and Sierra Walls for the property located at 1002 East Summit. And we'll call on our city engineer.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the map is an exhibit associated with this acquisition. This is a parcel D acquisition, southeast quarter of section 35, township 133, range 43. Where the location is the East Summit Avenue where it meets Otter Tail River. For the past few months, city staff and city attorney we've been having negotiations with the adjacent residents which reside in this area within the city limits. Essentially, we've been trying to addressing egress concerns, city maintenance responsibility, and the subsequent space needs associated with city maintenance. Due to the near right-of-way shown on the exhibit, I understand it's hard to read, but we're looking at the yellow section there on East Summit to acquire, which is privately held, which consists of an 8-foot by 240 strip of land, 1,925 square feet. This strip of land would provide a more consistent 33-foot right-of-way to help assist with some of the needs for city maintenance needs as well. And I know our City Attorney Ralph Nickamole here, he's been a part of negotiations. We arrived at those prices, but I think both parties are in agreements. We're looking to fund this through municipal state aid maintenance funds, this amount. So at this time, I'm requesting a resolution for the purchase of parcel D, amount of $4,235.26.
Thank you, Brian. Someone like to offer that resolution? Thank you, Scott.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. Questions for Brian?
Question?
Go ahead, Scott.
Is that piece of property paved or dirt, or what is it? It's along the street, so it's...
That's green space currently right now, and I
Okay.
don't believe we have any intentions of making any improvements to it at this time, other than general space needs for plowing snow.
Other questions? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Brian. Item number 5 is the River Oak Meadows and River Oaks Village Development. 2 items there. First is an update on the multi-use trail extension along Alcott Avenue from River Oaks Village to Tower Road. Brian, did you want to give us an update on that?
Yes, thank you. On June 1st, the City Council requested additional information in regards to the connectivity for the trail network located in regards to this site, which is bounded to the west is the roundabout, south is Alcott Avenue, excuse me, and to the north is West Side Drive. So I prepared this map to have a better understanding, and I also color coded as well. So if you want to refer to, let's just start out with on the very top of the map is the River Oaks Landing. That was constructed, I believe, in 2015, 2016. I'm referring to this as a green segment. This is an 8-foot multi-use trail that connected part of the River Oaks Landing development. This provided connectivity from Tower Road to West Side Drive. Funding for this particular segment was through a tax abatement agreement. The next segment we're looking at is what's proposed with the River Oaks Meadows and River Oaks Village Phase 2 site development. Look on the map, that's everything dark and hatch is a proposed layout of the buildings. Plat's been approved, everything at this point. There was some discussion too about the council's desires if they wanted to entertain another tax abatement agreement, which we think the developer is going to be proposing. But this blue segment represents the alignment northbound, north and south along the east side of the property, and then it veers to the west along the north side of Alcott. This once again is an 8-foot multi-use trail associated with this project. At this time, I believe they're going to be proposing a tax abatement agreement to help fund this project. The third segment is, I could call it the yellow segment. This is a potential 8-foot extension that could complete the connectivity from the blue segment to the existing trail right there in the northeast quadrant of the roundabout. I'm estimating this is about a 500-foot trail. Estimated cost about $80,000. We have not done any design engineering just some preliminary cost estimates. There will be some acquisitions too for trail right away as well that would be needed. However, we do not know these costs. So, like I said, this was an update in regards to that request, and I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
So at this point, we don't have the request for the abatement from the developer, correct? You're anticipating that's going to come forward, is that what you're saying? So at that point, it'll be to just decide whether we want to.
Yeah, Your Honor, council members, the developer's hoping to get some feedback. If the council's willing to entertain this trail connection, they'll go forward with the abatement request. They don't want to go through the process of requesting an abatement and incurring that cost if the city council's not wanting or willing to entertain a trail, in this case, the blue segment on Brian's map, as it relates to this project. The developer's fine either way. He's offering up use of that land for this purpose, but would request a tax abatement in return to fund the construction of that.
I think it makes good sense, but I also think we kind of need to have the yellow connectivity, otherwise the trail's going to end in somebody's side lot. So I think, I'd like to see if we have the ability to refine that yellow section, because I think it makes complete sense, but it'd be nice to finish that loop if we're going to do it.
Sure.
And I don't know how long that takes, and I don't want to delay their project either, so.
Oh, Your Honor, Councilman Armisen. No, I believe we can maybe have more information and proceed or initiate the yellow segment final design, but I think I would kind of wait until we get this blue segment solidified with the tax abatement agreement, and then at that time, we could possibly start to look at this yellow segment as well. I've spoken with the adjacent neighbors right there, and the comments thus far, they're very positive in regards to this, and not only the utility availability, that's also associated with this project as well.
Do we have any idea of what the amount of tax abatement they're going to ask for the blue segment? I mean, if the yellow segment is 80, is it like 160 for kind of like the blue one?
I don't have it in front of me.
We've had those preliminary discussions as long as the split, and I can't recall if it was 60-40.
Yeah, 140.
I think the trail, probably 160, and then so we're working on those numbers right now, but I think it would probably fall in lines with mimicking the original tax abatement agreement, which
that would be
presented to the council.
Yeah, Your Honor, that would be, the proposed number that we've been talking about is $140,000 over 10 years. So it'd be $14,000 abatement per year, which the city's share of the taxes would exceed that $14,000 amount, not by much, but it would certainly cover what that tax abatement was. And of course, we would only pay up to the amount that we received of the city's portion of those taxes. So looking at a 10-year abatement.
Yeah.
So you're looking for some direction, if that's, the developer's looking for some direction? How do others feel about?
I think it makes sense to go ahead and do it, to me.
I've got a question.
I feel like it gives them a little buffer too, between those places that are already there.
And that's the existing, it'd be right along that line of trees, correct, off of, there's a line of trees there
On the west side
currently,
of
right?
Essentially, field review, our attempt would be a preliminary design is to keep it on the outslope, inslope being closest to the road,
Yeah.
and give that little extra buffer there. There may be some site clearing, but we haven't clearly got to that development.
I would agree with Councilman Mallinson that if we're going to do the blue segment, we should be serious about the yellow segment too.
Yeah. So we can bring some more information at some point.
Certainly.
But I mean,
part of the question.
again, yeah, like now is the time to do this blue trail because it's the only time we're going to have the opportunity to do the blue, so.
Your Honor, if I may, there's opportunities anytime when you got, let's say, the construction of Blue Trail and then to adding to a contract, pricing by volume.
Sure.
So there are some benefits. So I think when we get to, I guess with the tax abatement, however that folds out, we will definitely try to see how we could incorporate this yellow segment into the overall design.
Certainly, that'd be a good idea. Yes, Scott?
The development as it's put together with the street in there and the parking lot and all that, that's not a city street though, that's the developer's cost entirely for the road, right?
Correct.
So what the city gets for this abatement is this nice wide trail, which is actually kind of an upgrade from any typical sidewalk at no cash out of pocket, we just don't get the taxes over a 10-year period, correct? That's how that ends up getting paid for. I think it's a good deal for the city to support this Blue Trail segment, and then as we can, do the yellow segment. If it happens at the same time and is efficient, that's great. If it happens and we budget for it in the next year or the next, down the line, I can see it would be nice to get it all in one package, but it wouldn't have to be. I mean, if we came down to where, we just don't want to spend that $80,000, well, we could wait, or we could spread it out over a couple of years or something. I would think, right?
Yes.
Tie it into some other project that's going further on or something?
Well, and the next item on the agenda too is in regards to utilities. So in addition to the trail, it's not to mention the utility designs and the enhancements the council approved to broaden the expansion area, the capabilities with these services.
Sure. All right. So does that give you the information you need right now, I think, for item 1?
I believe so.
Okay, great. Item number 2 is a resolution authorizing the city engineer and the city attorney to execute permanent and temporary street utility easements for this property located at 1413 Alcott Avenue West.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. The city's sanitary sewer and water main that's proposed in association with this River Oaks Meadows and River Oaks Village development is proposed to terminate along the south side of Alcott. In order to complete these installations as designed, a permanent and temporary construction easement is required from the adjacent owner that resides at 1413 Alcott Avenue. During the research, it was also determined Alcott Avenue itself lies within an easement dedicated for highway purposes only versus being dedicated as a right-of-way and utilities. So because of this, I had Interstate Engineering, who's been retained by the developer in the city to help with this project. The attached exhibit up there illustrates the 3 easements and associated that are also included in your packet, which is a temporary and permanent. The one indicated in blue is the permanent easement that we'd like to retain for street and utility purposes. The 10 by, I can't recall, but it's 10 foot wide. It's the green
120
area.
120 long.
Is it 120? Thank you. The green area is going to be reserved as a perpetual easement for utility purposes only. And the yellow segment there is going to be a temporary construction easement, temporary being upon completion and restoration on behalf of the city. It will be released back to the property owner. However, it's needed to facilitate the construction of the water main and sanitary sewer. I contacted the owners at 1413 Alcott to discuss this request. They are very much amenable at this time, and they're very supportive of it. This property is currently served by a private well and septic system. In negotiation for these easements at this time, I've done some comparisons and calculated some square foot pricing from Otter Tail County's land and resources site. And I also did some comparisons of previous service connections, similar to sewer and water, just to have a baseline to see what we're proposing and what they're proposing is reasonable, and I believe it is. So in churn for these easements as described in this exhibit, the owners are requesting service connections to the city utilities. They do have one further request, and that is that the city will also waive the water availability charge fee, which is currently $450. I said I would talk to the council members about this, and it'd be my recommendation based on the cost and everything that is a very reasonable request, what we're proposing and what the residents would like to see as well. So at this time, I'm requesting to authorize myself and the city attorney to execute the permanent and temporary street and utilities easements with the residents located at 1413 Alcott Avenue West.
Thank you, Brian. Someone like to offer that resolution?
I'll offer that.
Thank you. Brent?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Questions, comments for Brian? Seeing none? Roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Swanson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armisen.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Tonight we have claims in the amount of $1,794,003.90. and I would entertain a resolution to pay the bills. Jim? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Justin, second. If there's any questions, we'll direct them to our finance director. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Fish.
Yes.
Fontaine.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Hessison.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. And that is the last item on the open portion of our agenda. Unless there's anything else to come before the council, we will be adjourning to a closed meeting under the attorney-client privileges pursuant to Minnesota statute to discuss options regarding a contract. So that's what we'll be doing. So right now, we will adjourn the meeting.